Barton Simmons of CBS Sports.com and 247Sports.com. And the first thing I got to ask Barton Simmons, because I know, as we've talked about on the show and in previous appearances, Barton was a heck of a safety for the Yale Bulldogs back in his day. But over the weekend, we had Harvard-Yale. I mean, that's as big as the games get, you know. Harvard-Yale, they played the thing at Fenway Park, Barton. Did you get in that? I mean, don't you got to play that at Harvard or at Yale? I mean, play this thing and I appreciate the historic value of Fenway Park. But what did you think of that, playing the game there at Fenway?
Yeah. You know, what I thought was that for some reason when they upgraded Fenway Park, those tickets got to be like $200 a pop. And so I thought, I'm just going to watch this one from home. That's what I thought about it. I don't know why they played it at Fenway Park other than just some kind of cool neutral site setting. You know, just the pictures from all my buddies that were up there, it definitely looked like a cool setup and fun. But the wrong result, Travis. The Bulldogs didn't come through. They won the last two, didn't win this weekend. So licking my wounds a little bit on Monday.
Yeah, you've kind of made me a Yale fan. You know, even though I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it, but Barton's kind of bestowed that upon me. I'm sure the cask and flagon was rocking pregame and postgame right there and all that. That's great. But, man, it just kind of seemed odd to play that game at Fenway Park. Let's get into the FBS level from over the weekend. We talked last week, Barton, about this coaching carousel, and it just picks up revolutions, doesn't it? As we move through another weekend. Any surprises from what we heard the last few days between Colorado making a change, Les taking the job at Kansas? Anything catch you a little funny with anything we've seen to date?
Well, not really. I mean, I think the Colorado job, given that they're 2 years removed from Mike McIntyre being the National Coach of the Year, and they're like 5 games removed from Colorado being a top 25 team and having a 5-0 start. It was when the news started popping that, and it was about a week ago, I guess now, that McIntyre was likely out. That kind of caught me a little bit off guard. And I know that he's had a few off the field, if you want to call them, incidents in terms of handling of domestic violence on his staff. That probably plays into this a little bit. And obviously I think, but when I looked at the record to see that, I mean, he did have his 10-win season, but he's, you know, the other 5 years, they're all below 500. And so I think when you really look at it, that there's reason to understand this move. And I'll be really interested in where they go. I think there's some good candidates out there for them to go and hire for Rick George up there at Colorado. And the Les Miles deal didn't surprise me at all. I'm not sure I think it's the best hire, but I think it's a safe, kind of good hire. And it certainly brings some cachet to the role. And as they try to do some fundraising and facility upgrades, Les Miles will be a great fit in that role. But I'm very interested in where he goes for his coordinators and his coaching staff and what the offense looks like moving forward, because he's not going to be able to mash people with Kansas recruits. You better figure out a way to do a little misdirection somewhere along the way in Lawrence. Otherwise, it could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, he's going to have to get out of that phone booth that he liked to play offensive football in Baton Rouge. No doubt about it. Great point. Let me ask you this. Was that hire more the best that Les could do in terms of finding a job, or was it more the best Kansas could do? If you know what I'm talking about, which way do you think was maybe more of a stretch in this marriage?
Well, I think it was really the right fit for Les. I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I think it was the best job Les could get, and maybe there's an AD somewhere that is thinks otherwise, that wanted him. But I think that people kind of want the new shiny thing instead of the old proven thing, and so I think this is the right fit for Les. And I suspect Jeff Long looks at this hire at Kansas as a bit of a home run. I think he probably thinks this is the best that Kansas could do. I'm just not sure I agree. Again, I think Les will probably be what will make Kansas competitive and will continue to make it a better team than it is now. And I think that David Beatty just deserves some credit for handing him over a job that you can build on. But I'm looking at 5-7, 6-6 type years, and I think that's great, and so that's okay. But if they're looking to get 8 wins out of this somewhere along the way, I don't know that I see Les as the guy, and I think there probably were others out there that maybe could have been that guy for you.
We've talked about buyout protection that I thought a lot of these guys had going into the season. But when I see Colorado writing checks like they're writing Barton, and I see Louisville writing checks like it wrote to Bobby Petrino, I fall more and more into the line of thinking that Clay Helton's on the way out at USC. Is there any way he survives this if the Trojans don't pull off a massive upset this week against Notre Dame?
I don't see it. I mean, I tweeted last week after they lost to Cal that this feels like the end. I mean, if the best you can get is 6-6, which felt like what they were staring at, then I don't see how you can tolerate 6-6 at USC. And now it feels like the best they can get is 5-7. And I got to be honest with you, I think Notre Dame is going to go in there and absolutely dismantle USC. I think it's going to be just a behind the woodshed type of beating. And if you have that, a 5-7 year losing to UCLA and getting beat badly by a rival Notre Dame, I just don't know how you can keep them. And I don't know how you can argue that you should. I don't care what the numbers are. I mean, you shouldn't be this bad. They just shouldn't be this mediocre. And if you can argue about a true freshman quarterback all you want, but the reason the true freshman quarterback, who graduated early, by the way, just to get on campus, the reason he's playing is because you weren't confident in the rest of your quarterback room. And I just haven't seen development within that program. Everyone roots for Clay Helton. He is such a well-liked, respected human being, but I don't know how you can argue that 5-7 or 6-6 is ever something that you can tolerate at a program like USC. And look, the down years should be 9-3 there. That's just how it's got to be. And when you're trying to they should be year in, year out compared to Ohio State and Alabama, and sort of the premier programs in college football, and they just are constantly disappointing. So it's hard for me to envision now a scenario where it's defensible to keep Clay Helton. And I think the sort of the critical mass within the fan base has built up now to where that seems to be the direction this is going to head.
It's a good point. They're all good points. And you're right. When you're Clay Helton and at your roots, you're a quarterback guy. And as you said, you're playing a kid, a high school kid, a talented kid. I don't know if he's ultimately a first-round pick in JT Daniels, but that doesn't say much for, as you said, development in the one area that is, your area of expertise, and that's quarterback play. Talking with Barton Simmons at 247sports.com and cbssports.com on a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports, presented by Cartier and Lloyd Attorneys at Law and Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa. So that all leads us back to Lane Kiffin down there at Florida Atlantic. We still have some dominoes to fall, obviously, but with the way this thing is started, Barton, can you see a path for maybe Lane at a Power 5 type place when all this shakes out?
I don't know, Travis. I'm just not sure I'm there. I'm not sure that I'm the believer. I mean, look, he lost both of his coordinators this year. And so maybe you can make some excuses for this year. But I mean, they're 5-6, and I know they played, as far as Group of 5 teams go, a pretty tough Group of 5 schedule. But I mean, Lane Kiffin can make a splash. He can go in, he can recruit, he can create energy and momentum and buzz around the program, and he can win quickly. But have we seen Lane Kiffin really be able to sustain anything yet? I mean, ever. And so, like, I don't know how a Power 5 AD feels confident that you're going to get some sort of long-term answer with Lane Kiffin. I think he's got to prove it at Florida Atlantic for over the course of multiple years before he really becomes an enticing candidate. Now, there was a lot of buzz last year, and I get it. I mean, that offense was fun to watch and all that. But as we look here in year 2 at 5-6, and I think if I'm an AD, I want to see him get back up to that 9-10 range for a couple of years before I really get comfortable with him and make sure there's not just a bunch of JUCO mercenaries coming in and turnover on the roster and who are the type of guys he's recruiting. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions he's got to answer if I'm doing the hiring. Now, maybe somebody sees it differently, but to me, there's enough other good names in a cycle where there's not going to be a huge spin on the carousel to where I'm not sure Lane Kiffin gets the sniffs this year.
I guess a big reason why there might not be as much movement as there's been in years past, because Barton, it looks like the SEC might remain intact from 1 to 14. Is that what you're seeing right now?
That would be my expectation, yeah, unless, I don't know, something happens. Look, I mean, if USC goes, then who knows how the dominoes fall. If Ohio State goes, who knows how the dominoes fall. There's some jobs that could really get this thing turning. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure who the candidate would be. I mean, Gus Malzahn seems to have worked himself off the hot seat, which was even kind of crazy that he was even on it, given that he just signed that extension last year and what the buyout was and is. I think Derek Mason survives with Vanderbilt in the midst of an AD search. I doubt someone comes in and makes a move that quickly. I think around the league there was so much turnover last year that everyone's got kind of a clean bill of health to start this thing out again, and a couple people that don't have the circumstances in their favor to kind of get through this another year. So, I think we'll have to wait for more SEC turnover after last year.
What we see a lot of, it seems like, is recycling of head coaches, even at the college level. It's typically been, you see more of that maybe in the National Football League, but even there you're starting to see young rising assistants like McVay and others at that level take over jobs and do a really good job of it. Who are some of a couple of 3 college football assistants right now that you think are ready? And I know you're high on one guy in particular on this Alabama staff that might not be the name that most people would expect.
I do, yeah. I think that Josh Gaddis is going to be a head coach sooner than later, and it's going to be the right spot. And he's not, Mike Loxley is the coordinator. Gaddis is a co-offensive coordinator, and so he's got that title. But when you're talking about a Charlotte job that just came open, I mean, they're crazy not to consider him, considering who he's worked under now, Nick Saban and James Franklin. Everywhere he's been, the receivers have been not only a strength, but they continue to improve under him. He's a great recruiter, and again, he's coached now under 2 of the best recruiters in college football, so he'll get that part of it. And he's got great energy, and I think is really good in front of kids, families, communicates well. So I think he's a star, and Charlotte fits for him. So I'm not sure every job is sort of one that he's a candidate for. I think Charlotte is one. If he misses on that one, or if that doesn't come to fruition, then maybe it's a couple more years before the right one comes open or before he gets the right experience. But I would keep an eye on him for sure. Around college football, there's sort of the names that you hear, whether it's Brent Venables every year, guys like that. But a couple that I think would be interesting is another guy at Clemson, Tony Elliott, big time character guy that everyone raves about. Great offensive mind. He's the offensive coordinator over there at Clemson. I think he's going to be a star for somebody, again, for the right job. Jimmy Lake at the University of Washington, who's their defensive coordinator and who's been pumping out all those first-round, second-round DBs for Washington. I think he's a stud. And I'll tell you the new name that I'm really excited about, and I know this guy, and so I kind of know what he's about. But Clark Lee at Notre Dame, this probably won't be the year he gets a head job, but what he's done with that defense in year 1 and with the way he sort of handles himself and communicates and talks in front of a team, that's a guy that will be a head coach and probably a better head coach than he is if he been a coordinator. It's just going to be maybe, we'll see when the right time is. But there's some good ones out there. And to your point, Travis, when some teams take a chance on the right one, I think that's when you see kind of this thing really hit, like we're seeing at places like Oklahoma right now.
Yeah, Barton, we're going to have to change your last name to O. Simmons. You're so much on this Notre Dame freight train right now. And you tried to tell us a month ago or so that the Irish are real, and it's looking more and more that way after that impressive win on Saturday. It was a baseball stadium game weekend around college football, I guess. We had Yankee Stadium with football. You had SunTrust Park with college football, all these major league parks with college football over the weekend. As we let you go, Barton, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time and let you get out of here. You're building a college football offense from scratch, and I'm going to offer you either Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback. Who you taking, Barton? Kyler or Tua as your quarterback? You're building an offense.
I tell you, man, that's a great question. That's a fun one. I am very much a Tua guy. If you've been listening to me talk about Tua as around signing day a couple years ago, leading up to last year, leading up to the national championship game, following the national championship game, he's always been my guy. I believe in him. The thing that I like about Tua, and this takes nothing away from Kyler, because he kind of gives you a dimension running the football, obviously, that is so unique. But Tua's poise and calm under pressure in big moments is just, it's so special. I think he's got some traits in terms of intangibles that I have not seen too often. And that's what sort of breaks the tie for me. But I tell you, there's suddenly sort of some media folks out there that are sort of pushing the Kyler Murray for Heisman train. So maybe we got a little more of a race there than we would have expected. That's going to be fun to watch. But those two are they're making college football fun, the both of them.
No doubt about it. Well, as always, Barton, we appreciate you taking more than enough time with us on a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports. Always look forward to your work, both at CBSSports.com and 247Sports.com. Give Barton a follow on Twitter at Barton Simmons. You'll be glad you did. Thanks a lot, Barton.
Always fun. Thanks, Travis.